Good evening, everyone. I am Paula Fontana, Vice President of Strategic Programming Initiatives with the National Black MBA Association. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for Navigating a Hybrid Workplace. So the mission of the National Black MBA Association is to lead in the creation of educational, wealth building, and growth opportunities for Blacks throughout all stages of their careers as students, professionals, and entrepreneurs. And we can only accomplish this mission in partnership with organizations that take the time to engage with our membership and provide a pathway to opportunity. Organizations such as our sponsor this evening, Samsung. So the pandemic has really forced us into this unknown, first virtual and now hybrid. And as we are all now reckoning with our ever-changing reality, we could use a little bit of help understanding to how not only survive, but thrive in a hybrid workplace. And the key to thriving is innovation. So our panelists for tonight have pursued unique professional endeavors while being supported by the same entity, an entity that values change and leverages the skills of its employees to drive innovation. They will dive into their experiences to shed light on how you can foster an innovative spirit and perhaps do so at Samsung. So let's meet our panelists. First, Kyle Cordon, Carrier Dedicated Field Sales Manager. He has operated in the consumer electronics and telecommunications industry for over 12 years as a sales and service leader. In his current role, he owns sales strategy, execution, channel monitoring, and risk management for Samsung Electronics of America. He is a member of the Galaxy of Black Professionals and Next Generation Leaders ERGs, Samsung Elevate, and Solve for Tomorrow mentorship program. Can you tell he likes to give back? He lives in Long Island, New York, alongside his wife, dog, and is an avid tech enthusiast and passionate gamer. Next up, we have Malachi Rogers, Director, Training and Quality Performance. She champions the Training Reengineering Initiative, Quality Program, and Policy and Procedures. She has been with Samsung for over 10 years, most recently as a Retail Senior Account Manager supporting the Verizon account team. Throughout her journey, she has also focused on a people-first mindset. And she has been recognized by her peers and leadership for motivating those around her, as well as going the extra mile. She attributes that success to a handful of core values: integrity, teamwork, humility, and excellence. And then finally, Allison Morgan, Director of Consumer and Shopper Insights at Samsung. She is responsible for leading a research team that ensures the voice of the consumer in business decision-making and acts as a strategic partner and consumer insight consultant in support of the strategy, marketing plan, and product innovation development. She has over more than 15 years of expertise in the US. Now, while I do have a set of questions I'm going to ask our panelists, I encourage you to place your questions in the Q&A feature as you think of them so that we can keep this conversation as fluid as possible. So to kick us off, I would love for our panelists to tell us about your career journey, as well as what allowed you to come into this current role. And we can start with Kyle.
Hello, everybody. So as you all mentioned before, my name is Kyle Cordon. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I've been with Samsung for 8 years, serving in the Carrier Dedicated Field Sales Manager role out of the New York metro area. As I stated in my intro, I'm part of the Galaxy of Black Professionals and the Next Generation Leaders ERGs. And actually recently I've accepted a new position as a project manager supporting our mobile enhancement product launches. So as a remote field employee transitioning into the office, I wanted to share some of my experiences and reflect on the opportunities that shaped my journey. I firmly believe that a blueprint must be left behind for others as you continue down your path. And as I continue to take advantage of the human capital development Samsung and its partners provide, I want to bring those tools and resources back to my community and act more broadly as megaphone for the voices of my people.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Allison, how about you?
Sure. Good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you so much, Paul and team, for inviting me and the rest of the panelists to speak with you today. It's an honor. My name is Allison Morgan. My pronouns are she and her. I've been with Samsung for a little over 4 years. I'm Director of Consumer Insights, supporting our CE division, which is our Consumer Electronics division. My scope covers home appliances, home entertainment, and display. And as mentioned in my intro, my team, I lead a team of 6 researchers. Our charge is really to make sure the voice of consumer is embedded in everything we do in terms of strategy, our marketing plans, our new products, et cetera. So really happy to be here, and certainly looking forward to sharing a lot of what I do here at Samsung, talk about any questions you might have. Same as Kyle, I'm a part of the Galaxy of Black Professionals ERG. I attend and I participate in a lot, and I'll talk about a lot of this later on. All of the ERGs we have here at Samsung. I'm also involved in the Software Tomorrow program, which is really dedicated to make sure STEM and education and a lot that we do here at Samsung. So there's a lot of opportunities here to do a lot of things outside of my day-to-day work. So again, looking forward to sharing this all with you in the next hour.
Wonderful. And Malachi.
Hi, thank you, Alice. Thank you, Paula. So as you've mentioned, my name is Malachi Rogers. My pronouns are she and her. And my journey actually started with Samsung a little over 10 years ago. And just before that, for 7 years, I actually worked for a carrier. So I've been really in the telecommunications industry for 17 years. And within my Samsung realm, you will learn today, I have held several different positions, supported our customer care organization, our retail organization, and now I am come full circle back into the care organization. I'm also a member of the Galaxy of Black Professionals, as well as the women at Samsung Electronics ERGs. And through my journey, one thing that has always held fast for me, you mentioned my values, those are key, but also very important to me in growth and development through my tenure here has been mentorship, and being a mentor, and also having mentors to help develop and grow me in my journey, especially during difficult parts. We often don't want to talk about those things, the obstacles, but I am brave and bold enough to say that 10 years in one corporation as large as ours, there's always obstacles, and it's never too late, and never give up. Stay focused, and we'll talk more about where I'm at now as far as managing all of our contact centers from a training, quality, process, procedure perspective. It's a super exciting journey, lots of opportunity to learn and grow our contact center agents, which ultimately impact the customer experience, which is also very important.
So would love to stick with you for a moment. Let's talk about your global assignment in living abroad in Korea. Tell us about that experience, how it came about, and how it helped you to navigate your professional journey.
Absolutely. So when I started at Samsung in 2011, I had done a few different projects and things when I started out managing our contact centers, our ECR group, and started a white glove service before we were all over this white glove experience. I had piloted a few different things during that course of that project and caught the eye of my dispatcher. When I was hired, one of my mentors told me a key to success at Samsung is understanding the culture where you work. We work at a Korean company, and understanding that bowing in their culture is a sign of respect. Learning how to communicate in email. Now, mind you, this is 10 years ago, so things have changed. But when I first started, it was really embracing the culture and understanding that. And that was a key not only to his success, but he would always give me pointers on communication style. So caught the eye just through hard work, several key projects of my dispatcher, because this program, the Global Assignment, it's a nomination program. Typically, our subsidiaries throughout the world only send 1 to 2 people in the entire company. So it really is an honor to be chosen for the Global Assignment due to that very small niche of people that ever get into the program. So when I was asked, I was like, wow, me, I was super excited. And obviously I jumped at the opportunity. I didn't look back. And I will say that for me, I know that, the global opportunity exists. And I think somebody just popped in the chat throughout different parts of the organization. But within the year I went, we only sent 2 people from the CARE organization. So it was only in my class about 17 of us or 15 of us. But being there gave me a different lens of working in a global corporation that you just won't see when you're in North America. Just the customs, the work styles. We are often at our desk, heads down, we'll forget about lunch. When I was in the Global CS Center, from 12 to 1, the lights were off. You were at lunch. In America, we would be like, why are they turning the lights off in the office? Is it time to go home? So to me, something as small as that was like, this is really different. But you work hard. I learned how to navigate it with communicating with the Korean language. I had to study the Korean language, and it definitely is a language that you have to practice. But I was so fortunate to have the opportunity to not only be submersed in the culture, to look at how our business functions globally, not just from a North American lens, but globally. I was able to work with our South American partners and our South American subsidiaries, work with Canada, even though technically they're part of North America, but to actually work with them on a day-to-day basis and look at their metrics and KPIs and get a better understanding of their business. And I spent 12 months there, and not only looking and working day to day, but I actually was able to go to our manufacturing plant and understand and look at our R&D and see the depths that Samsung goes through to make a product that we all can respect and that the customer will be happy about. There is a lot of work, a lot of testing that I don't think people ever realize the depths that we go through until we have something happen. And then it's like, oh, we do this testing. And it's like, Samsung's always done these things. We want to ensure we put the best product out for the customer, and the passion that is there for that is amazing. To go to one of our facilities and understand how we make a product, how we inspect it. So for me to see and really understand the end to end of our company from the lens of actually being on site in our global headquarters was just eye-opening. It was also refreshing. It was also humbling. So, you really get the full gambit of what working in a different culture and company looks like. And when I came back, I had a very different outlook of how do I succeed? How do I ensure that I'm driving my team to success and not meeting just my team goals, but my company goals? So, it definitely gives you a different perspective on how to drive and be successful.
That's awesome. So I wrote down a couple notes as you were talking and, wanted to connect it to this hybrid space
Yes.
we find ourselves in. So with that global experience you've had, you talked about the importance of knowing the culture and the importance of remaining connected. And I feel like that's a couple things that, people have concerns about when we go from, in person to this, this hybrid or
Yeah.
virtual. So what experiences or what could you help people take away from what you experienced in Korea? How did you do those things? And what would you recommend to others?
So I think one of the biggest things to take away in working virtually and connecting with the person, connecting with individuals, removing the work component, a big part of Korean culture is we go have dinner, we have lunch, we join together. So when you remove that ability to do that, you have to find creative ways. So is it we have a virtual coffee talk? And we're not necessarily here to talk about the numbers. How's your day? How's your family? So really getting to know the people that you're going to be working with day in and day out. And I always tell my team, tell people I mentor, the individuals that you may only work with monthly, don't make that the only time you talk to them when it's about work. Set a coffee talk or set a, hey, you want to have a sip and learn, after 5, and how are things going? How can I help? We laugh, but that's a way to nurture and grow a relationship outside of just focusing on the work, because when people know you care, they will go above and beyond. And I think that's what I took away. And I saw when you get invited to their homes, that's a huge honor.
Right.
To be invited to someone's home is like, wow, really? And it's that's their way of welcoming you in, and saying, hey, come grab dinner with us. So I think we have to take some of those little moments and recognize that the importance of human contact, even if it's virtual, just to talk, that makes a massive difference on how you connect with individuals.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So Kyle, first of all, absolutely love the shirt. It's freedom for all. Secondly, so let's talk about Elevate, Leadership Development Program for Professionals at Samsung. Tell me the purpose of the program and how it has supported you throughout your journey.
Yeah. So definitely, to echo some of Malachi's statements, one of the things that Elevate has also taught me is the importance of networking. So, definitely for all the participants and panelists, look us up on LinkedIn, make sure you send requests out because networking is key. But yeah, no, to talk about Elevate more, Samsung has invested several resources into the DEI initiatives and talent development, which has passionately reignited myself and others within the org. The opportunities to share and promote my culture, background, and beliefs are beneficial as perspectives of minorities are often diminished. And so being a remote employee also creates the additional risk of a silo effect because you feel you may not be as valuable of a contributor. One of the programs that is part of combating that is the Elevate program. So it's a top performer program geared towards developing an individual's skill sets to progress to the next level of their careers. I highly recommend it for any professional interested in pushing themselves to grow professionally and develop cross-channel partnerships with peers, mentors, leaders across the organization. It provides an additional sense of ownership in their individual development. During my time in the Elevate program, I've gained exposure to emotional intelligence training, social media and SEO optimization, leadership development, DISC assessments, and more. And a lot of these things, you really have to come out of pocket and pay for these things. And so these are things that Samsung is investing in at no charge to me. And I've collaborated with peers nationally on projects and afforded a platform where my opinion carries magnitude and scale. We spent a week in our Plano office, which was incredibly insightful and rewarding of an experience for field workers because, obviously we don't spend that much time behind those desks. And during that time, I leveraged many of the skills I'd honed to expand relationships and gain clarity on the scope and vision of our leaders. I was able to give critical feedback and share insight from a unique point of view, and most importantly, enabled me to align accordingly with that vision and execute my plan with strategic, laser-focused mindset. So I do credit the Elevate program and its leaders for being fundamental to the growth mindset I've adopted today and, my most recent elevation into my new role.
That is amazing. So I kind of talked about this during your introduction, and you mentioned this a second ago, the mentorship piece. How critical would you say having mentors are to help you to elevate or to continue to develop your skill set?
So yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that we learned about in Elevate is actually distinguishing between what an effective mentor is. So we have, mentors who help you get to the places that you want to be, but we also have coaches who help develop your skill set so you can get to those places where you can find those mentors. And you also have sponsors who are brokers of that trade. And so it's important to distinguish at what point or where that person can best serve you and how they align with your career journey and if that makes sense. A lot of the time, even myself as well, people kind of aimlessly look for mentorship with people who they see as in an elevated level, but it may not be following a path that they may have wanted to go back behind. And it may not have been a career that they may even be interested in. It's just something that somebody sees success and they want to gravitate towards that. And I think that that's a mistake that's, needs to be corrected. It needs to be something, more methodical, in which case we can identify, this person has skill sets that I'd like to acquire or develop, and I can extend, a virtual chat, so to speak, to learn more about that specifically, or this person can help me get to this door, or this person has a job that I'm looking for. And so really kind of putting perspective into that and then being intentional, I find is very important. And then after that, definitely get those mentors, get those coaches, and get those sponsors, and get as many as you can, because you may underestimate the value of mentor moments or coaching moments, and those are just as impactful as or valuable as well, even if it's just a one-time discussion that you have with somebody who's a leader.
Awesome. So, and attaboy, yes, knowing understanding the difference, mentor, coach, sponsor, all of them are very different and serve different pieces of the puzzle. So thank you for that. Sticking with you just for another minute. So being remote, what are some of the ways that Samsung has helped you to stay engaged and feel like you are a valued contributor to the team?
So I think that the DEI sector expanding is one of those opportunities where I find the connectivity, especially to my culture, being most prominent. I think that within the galaxy of Black professionals, I had spoken to them earlier. I had applied for a regional co-chair position because previously I had not realized that there was as much diversity within the organization, just being in that kind of a silo. I could only see within my direct division, and I could only see the people that are directly around me. And so as that sector expands, and as we continue to move forward and learn through this remote and hybrid environment, the opportunities to connect with others is naturally expanding over onto the field team. And I think that, this is the critical time to be able to learn how to navigate those relationships, because as we continue to see more integration of these remote and hybrid initiatives, you're going to see more of these, field workers who have these diverse perspectives that are unique and influenced by the field, coming into these spaces where they have access to and a platform to speak to leaders and actually make impactful statements.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that. So let's switch to our next panelist, Allison. Let's talk about the ERG, or the Employee Resource Group.
I know we've been talking a lot about it.
Oh, right.
And
Let's
it's
dig
great.
deeper.
Yeah, let's dig deeper. And just as a side, Kyle, glad you were able to sign up to be a co-chair. I'm a former co-chair myself of the Northeast region, and it certainly was a valuable experience for me. So fingers crossed, I'm behind you all the way. We've been talking a lot about our employee resource groups, ERGs, abbreviation that we use. So I'm going to use that quite a bit in the next few minutes. Paula, if you allow me, I'm going to highlight all of the ERGs that we have here at Samsung. I'll go quick, I promise, and I'll circle back to your question. So everyone by now on this webinar should hear about our Galaxy of Black professionals. We also have Unidos. It is an ERG that is focused on empowering the Hispanic community inside and outside of Samsung. We also have the Samsung Equality Alliance group, which is focused in on the LGBTQ plus community. We also have Next Generation Leaders, which Kyle is aligned to. And that group is focused on empowering young professionals within Samsung. We have our veterans community. We support our veterans and their families. So that's the group that we have. A group that Malachi is aligned to is WISE, which is the Women in Samsung Electronics. And that, of course, is empowering women. And then, of course, we talked about the GBP. And certainly the focus there is certainly advancing Black professionals within Samsung. As I mentioned, I'm an active member of that group, a former co-chair. In terms of how the ERGs, just a couple highlights for our ERGs here at Samsung and how we've been able to not only push strategy, but certainly help our employees feel a sense of community. One thing that the GBP was able to do last year, and it was instituted this year, was to push for and secure an early release for all employees for Juneteenth, for yesterday. So kudos to that group for doing that. Some other things that our ERGs help build within Samsung, for example, WISE, they have the Lean In Communities circles where it helps with not only mentorship, but a sense of community as you think about a hybrid environment Kyle touched upon. You know, you feel like you're not alone. So they were able to stand that up. The GBP also sent over letters of inspiration and messages to TechBridge girls. So we're doing a lot around that. And also our ERGs in general, we do focus in on community service. Samsung has a community service week, I think it's now. It was a day, it became a week, I think. And all of our ERGs put in suggestions of community programs and things that we should make sure invest our time in. So in terms of our reach, our broad reach as an ERG community, we've done a lot of things for Samsung and certainly as we think about pushing our company forward. So just wanted to highlight a couple of things.
Wonderful, wonderful. So as you were talking about all the different types of ERGs and things that are available, I wrote down two things. I think I should perhaps trademark them. One of them is representation matters, but then support sustains. So making sure that both of those things are available. And so kudos to Samsung for having that support and representation for all of your employees. Within the hybrid space, can you talk a little bit more about how they have perhaps helped each of the different groups transition into this new hybrid workplace?
I know. Samsung, we have, it's a chat, it's called MChat, but it's just a chat where we have it set up for each of our ERGs. And the intent there is, especially in a hybrid world, people want some time to just talk to someone. Sometimes you don't want to talk to your direct manager about issues going on in the world, whether it's you know, having to do with the war in Ukraine or anything like that. But we have these MChat groups where people can go ahead and share with people who are connected to them or who are allies as well. So that's something that we've done. Also last year we piloted, and I believe it's carried over into Q1, a mentorship program here, the first one for really led by our ERGs. And the idea there is similar to Kyle, you get to talk to people. You know, you get to share not only someone you think is a higher, you know, director or above level, but we have mentorship where it's peer-to-peer or even below, right? You can always learn from someone. And the idea behind those is when people eventually transition back into the office, we now have a hybrid system. You are able to connect to people that you've met even for the very first time on WebEx, right? You meet them in person, you kind of feel that sense of community. So we have a couple of things that we're standing up to help with our employees transitioning back to return to the office. But of course, we have a hybrid system right now.
Great. And again, for those of you watching, I can, of course, continue to pepper our panelists with questions, but it is really about you making sure that you get your questions answered. So encourage you to place them in the chat, I'm sorry, in the Q&A as we go along, and we will get to as many of them as we can during our short time together. So this one is open to anyone willing to answer, and would love to hear just why Samsung was able to adjust so quickly to the hybrid work model.
I'll address or kind of speak to this one a little bit. I think one of the things that we did really well was the company rolled out surveys, employee surveys, to understand how they were thinking and feeling about returning to work, being in the office, not being in the office. And they did a few of those throughout this 2.5 years of truly kind of remote working, and then as we transitioned into hybrid. So listening to the employees, I think, was important. Getting kind of the survey data and pulling that together, and more importantly, at a group level, sharing that feedback so that it wasn't just kind of going into a black hole, but it was transparent on, this is the feedback. This is what our employees are saying about this environment, and how they want to function moving forward. Also, one of the things that Samsung was already doing was allowing employees to flex their schedule throughout the month. So even before the pandemic, they were starting to understand the value in allowing your employees to flex their schedule, and allowing for 4 times being able to work, remote when necessary. So then when it came to listening to employee feedback, looking at the model that we had pre-COVID, they listened to their employees. And when we actually, offices really started opening back up, it was, 2 days. That's really all employees felt comfortable with. But also, it was important that they said, if you are comfortable. I think that is a key to understanding that in the very beginning, when employees, it was also about comfortability, working with your manager to ensure that you felt good about being in the office. So it goes back to, they listened. So many big corporations we see don't listen. Samsung was actually listening as we went through this pandemic, and really about kind of returning to the office and what needed to work for a hybrid work environment, and what was going to make the employees, really kind of want to be able to come back into the office and feel good about that.
Wow. So, that's innovative, asking employees what they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add, if you would allow me, Paula, certainly we had the flex schedule, so that certainly helped us. But also, as a company, one of our values is around change. And we talk about it being a core value. And certainly Malachi can talk a lot more about it, given her experience in Korea, about change. So the mentality is, the DNA of our company is, if we don't change, we die, right? If we don't innovate, we do. So it was already in our mindset that, yes, we needed to quickly switch to this. We had the infrastructure set up. There were some employees who weren't able to work from home, right? Given they're in the field. Right. Given their job, but for the majority, we all had that ability, so that helped with the transition, I would say. So the infrastructure, of course, and of course our DNA and it being part of our core value.
That's great. So hybrid, is amazing, or it could be considered. What have you enjoyed most about hybrid compared to working fully in person before the pandemic? Anyone?
I've enjoyed just being able to walk upstairs and sit at my office and work, and not having, sometimes if you're in meetings all day, it's just nice to be able to focus without someone walking up to your desk, especially if you're working on reports and PowerPoints. The distractions, for me, it's often nice to just be able to, I can truly be heads down, and the only thing I have to look at, is a chat or if my phone rings, versus when you're in the office, especially if you're very social or a lot of people, everyone is so happy to see everyone.
Right.
There's always this channel of, hey, I'm stopping by your desk, and it's like, next thing you realize it's 4 o'clock and I haven't been able to quite do everything. So it's refreshing to see everybody's face and just talk and really catch up face to face. But for me, when I really need to be heads down, having the flexibility of being able to just truly focus on that without all of the externals is really nice for me. And being home with my dog, I love my little pup. So he has enjoyed me being home for 2.5 years versus being in a little crate throughout the day. So
That's great. Kind of a follow-up question to that point. Do you think that at different levels of the organization, those distractions, if you will, are more valuable than others? So for example, having, let's say, a VP around for his or her staff, would they probably feel more comfortable in an in-person environment, being able to walk up and, chit chat versus, making the call? So benefits, outweighing that for the in versus virtual.
That's a really good question, Paula. And I will say, considering the amount of time I've spent in the field and traveling so that I could build relationships, you are 100% accurate. You do need that face time to help nurture, grow relationships. It's easier sometimes just to walk over and talk to someone. So there is, yes, without a doubt, there are more valuable conversations than others, right? In that, if you're coming to talk just to catch up and we caught up yesterday versus, hey, I need to talk to you and work through this issue. Let's grab a conference room and, get on the whiteboard. Absolutely. Those are hands down experiences you can't replace. Definitely a firm believer that the face-to-face interaction, especially when you're new to the organization, or new to a role, it is really hard to build relationships, I think, unless you have a sponsor who's making sure that you're connecting, or in this instance, a leader who's making sure you need to meet this person, set up these meetings, make sure you're on camera. So it's like more, I guess you could say, steps that need to be taken when you're in the virtual environment if you want to nurture and grow any type of relationship or have really good communication. You definitely have to put more effort into it versus being in the office. I can just walk over and talk to you. You don't have to make assumptions about my face or about the tone. Nope, we're right here talking one-on-one. Let's work it out.
No, that's a great point, especially about new employees. So perhaps making sure there's some type of intentional plan, right?
Yes.
Those connections continue to happen, whether virtually or not. I think I saw maybe it was Allison wanting to make a comment there.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Malachi was saying, but just kind of wrap it up. What I do with my work from home days is I'm focused, as Malachi mentioned, on a report. So I purposely choose days when I have a report, I make sure I'm heads down. And days when I'm in the office, it is for networking, it's for meeting, it's for workshop, and really talking and connecting to people. And it does help in that sense, I believe, certainly in this environment. It's hard, right? To just, for WebEx, you have to schedule a call and all that. Whereas when you're in the office, to your point about, bumping into a VP, they're just easier accessible when they're walking to the coffee machine, right? And you can have a 5-minute conversation with them versus it being too formal. It takes you 10 days or even more, given their calendars and who you need to talk to, probably 10 weeks, to set up a 15-minute chat with them. So definitely agree and echo Malachi's points.
That's great. Kyle, anything you would add to that? I know you probably all remote in sales.
So I think that one of the things that I do like about going into the hybrid workplace is that I can be a little bit creative with my schedule. The fact that, the expectation is not to be available or in the office a full 5-day work week does sound exciting. And to Malachi and Allison's point, there still is value and importance into that in-person physical connection, just because it's much easier for you to extend those relationships in that kind of environment. It's much more easier to influence and, gain buy-in for those benefits, maybe outside of, what your direct tasks or functions for work are. And, I still have big dreams within Samsung. And so that's exactly the purview that I think that I'm going in with the expectation of, is that, I'm going to be going in with intentionality about how I'm going to scale up relationships and gain buy-in and kind of navigate the org further.
That's great. So during this conversation, someone mentioned work-life balance. Would love to know what does that look like to you and has it changed since the pandemic?
Well, I can speak about it. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in my discussion, but certainly I can speak about it. With this flex, just full transparency, I'm a morning person. So my energy is highest in the morning. That's what that means. And before the pandemic, in terms of health and wellness and fitness, I would do that on the weekends, right? Because I wouldn't have time to do it during the week. But with this more hybrid schedule, I'm able to work out in the mornings a couple of days a week, which I've never been able to do. So in terms of that, that certainly is a benefit. Certainly mental wellness. I can take a break. For example, if I am working from home and I have to be heads down for a report, I feel more comfortable, me personally, taking that, 30 minutes or whatever a mental break, doing kind of meditation as an example. So certainly it has facilitated my health and wellness in that aspect. I get to do it more, right? It's not just stuck that I do something I do on the weekends and things that I don't take care of during the week. I'm able to kind of get a good mix, I think. Certainly that's what I think of when I think of work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'll say in the beginning of the pandemic, there wasn't a work-life balance. It was work, 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 because guess what? I'm home. I don't need to worry about the commute there and back. And, it's the less the distraction. So I was working, would not even like, oh, let me just go outside and walk. And as stress levels increased, because the pressure to, perform still was there, right? We still had goals and things. I started to realize in talking to my peers, we were all doing that. We were all working more and not having as much of a balance that we needed. And so kind of started talking to my team and like, okay, if you're stressed and I'm stressed, how do we de-stress? What are you doing to de-stress? So kind of talked and said, you know what, this has got to stop. And realized that, to Allison's point, walking away for 15 minutes, just walk to the end of the, around the block, or just check your mail, take a breather, is key. And when I started to do that, I to her point, oh, I can actually exercise. Yeah, I mean, because I am at home. And it's okay. We had to have some laughable conversations that, well, technically we do get lunch and a break. We're not doing these things, and you don't have to necessarily eat, but take a minute to meditate. One of my mentors, I don't know if she's on the call, but she recommended meditation in the morning, and I started doing that. And like I said, in talking to others also helped to ensure, what are you doing to kind of de-stress? And, well, I do this. That's a really good idea. And I noticed the change of relaxation coming in, and being able to breathe and take those moments and be okay. And that really helped. So meditation is very important, but realizing the problem is always first, right? Hey, I'm working too much. But yes, that connecting that, Samsung has been really, they have so many resources for us to do these things for mental well-being, and to help you ensure that you do have that work-life balance. So that's always a good thing when your company supports exercise and wellness and your, overall health.
Absolutely. Kudos to Samsung on that. Kyle, work-life balance, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think that, going back to the first question about, where we spoke about change being a core value within Samsung. I think that it's looking at how the definition of a lot of things have evolved. So, what does it mean to be on the clock or working throughout the day, when you have to be more cognizant of things such as people's kids, people's family expectations, people's, personal, life. And so when you sit there and you ask about work-life balance, I think that one of the things that we did initially go into was kind of that head down running motion, just because, it's like, how do you manage that free time? But then, going into it now and looking at it in today's day and age, when we've adjusted, we've made the necessary pivots so that, maybe our day might be a little bit more work throughout the day, but it's broken up into more spurts. Maybe that my personal life is mixed in throughout the middle of that day, and I'm, doing things like split shifts. And I think that a lot of these conversations are more acceptable to be had with your leaders, and more acceptable to even just, exercise that right within yourself. And I think that that's very reassuring, because it allows you the flexibility to understand that, hey, life does happen, and that, if the company cares about me, that it's not going to be something that's what people call a career limiting move. And so, yeah.
Wow, that's deep, and it touches into the question I was about to ask, and it sounds like it's a resounding yes. We talked about the fact that Samsung is a wonderful place for flexibility, and was curious, as people enter into this great resignation or consider that next opportunity, should flexibility or a hybrid work model be a deal breaker? How valued is it of a commodity at this moment in time?
So I think that in the Great Reset in general has two ways to look at it, right? So I think that it's natural that life and the world is cyclic, and so that culture of change is going to be come upon all of us at some point of time. And so when you looked at a lot of people who have left and gone on to other places, there's a lot of other people who are looking for that new opportunity as well, to fill that space and to fill that void. It isn't something like the gold rush where there's no more resources and it's now depleted. There's a consistent need for that human capital. There's a consistent need for people, and there's more opportunities now, especially within this environment, for us to kind of fill those slots with diversity, fill it with intersectional people who can sit there and voice those concerns in a greater need that applies to where our voices will have greater impact. And so all I see is opportunity to balance out the status quo. And so I welcome it personally. I think that I'm a byproduct and a benefit of it. And so, I say that it's nothing more than a mindset to ask yourself, what am I prepared to what am I prepared to do, or where am I prepared to go in order to, see the success that I want to get? And I think that this is one of the organizations that allows us that ability to do so.
Wonderful. So we got a kudos for the splitting of shifts, especially when working with people with children, because it does help the entire work group remember that there is a world outside of work, right? And it reminds us of that importance. So thank you so much for that comment, Purity. So I would love to hear from you all. This is one of my favorite questions. What is one of the biggest joys as a leader that you've had at Samsung?
I think one of the biggest joys for me is being able to share forward. I think that personally, from a long period of time, I felt like there wasn't necessarily a path that I could just choose and latch onto and follow within the organization. And so it led me to a lot of self-discovery and a lot of self-improvement in that respect. And I think that the things that I would have benefited from sooner would have been being brought on that journey or kind of led down that journey by somebody else. And maybe it's a question of whether it was a right place, right time. Was I ready for that opportunity then versus now? But I think that, the greatest part of me being a leader now is that I know that I personally stand on the side of, hey, touch everybody and tell everybody the plan. If they don't want to follow that plan, then that's perfectly fine. That's all right. At least they have a blueprint that they know that they can follow if all else fails.
Hey, Malachi?
Yeah, thanks, Paula. So I would say there are two pivotal moments for me. One was obviously being chosen to go into the global mobility program because it let me know that a leader is not defined by a title. And I think that's very important for everyone to realize. Titles don't define you, you define who you are. And then the most recent pivotal moment was when I got a fantastic new mentor who one of the first things he told me was, now I don't know if this is going to work. I am interviewing you as you are interviewing me. And we fostered a really great relationship. And unfortunately, he passed away unexpectedly. But he was someone within our organization who can never be replaced. One of the quotes that he gave me, and when you think about Samsung and you think about people, you think about community, you think about all lives matter. You can't I cannot protect you from change. However, I can help you thrive through a changing environment. We are always constantly changing. Allison mentioned that, Kyle has mentioned that. And I think those are things that are important. So when you think through, who I am as a leader in those pivotal moments, I think for me, the only other thing I would add is when I see people that I have developed or coached or who work for me who are thriving and growing, that is me saying, oh, wow, I think I might have helped with that. But you know how I know? It's not me assuming, it's when they come back and say, your leadership taught me this. That's when I know I'm doing a good job. I try not to make assumptions, but I love when I have people come back to me and say, well, you were, XYZ. And it's like, was I? I was? Well, thank you. I'm going to keep doing that. Anything I need to update or change? But listening and paying attention and always watching those individuals that you have cultivated in your career, watching them thrive, that's the best.
Right, it is. Allison.
Sure. What I would add is, Samsung and any company, you can be siloed, right? Meaning stay within your team and do the type of work, for example, consumer insights. You can do that for 10, 15 years, whatever, and not talk to any other group. So what I usually tell my team is talk to people. Set up a coffee chat with this person. I give them names because it's easier, just give them direction. And what I've noticed over the last, few months is people coming back to me and say, Allison, I'm going to be aligned with this program, completely different from what we're doing here, consumer insights, but I get to talk to this person and you see the joy, right? So it's not just I come in, I do this day to day, but they understand it's not just network building, right? It's really just finding that joy within the workplace by doing something that you love. Kyle, for example, the Solve for Tomorrow program, he probably loves things in terms of education, right? But it's for you to proactively go out there and speak to people, and then you'll find, oh yeah, I have that in common with this person. Let's align on this. It might not directly impact my day-to-day job, or it might. I tell people, encourage them, consumer insights, build that into anything you're going to do. But the idea is they'll find that they're not so siloed. They're not so siloed, and there are opportunities that's not just work related. That can give you joy. So that certainly has been an experience that I've had with my team, and hopefully they're listening for this call, and we'll continue to do that. Certainly, it's something that I was taught from a coach that I had, and it has helped me in my career.
That's great. So I've heard a few of you, if not all of you, talk about how the organization embraces change. And in order to really embrace change, you have to be willing to take risks. So would love to hear about a risk that you took within the organization that paid off for you.
All right, I'll jump in this one. So obviously I just recently accepted a new role. So one of the things with Samsung is relocatability. And so if you ever look at my profile, I'm a New York Metro through and through, school, work, everything along those lines. And I'm pretty fixated in terms of, wanting to stay and remain in New York. And so after, some time, and kind of just figuring out where I wanted to go and how I wanted to navigate throughout the organization, you have to kind of adjust to certain mindsets. If I want to join a product team, then how will I join a product team if I'm not at Plano offices where the HQ is located and the team is located? And so, not to say that there's every opportunity has to be where you can't, get a remote opportunity, but in this particular scenario, the risk that I had to take would be to relocate. And so within the next 3 months, I will be relocating to Texas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so, this will be my first time out of New York in terms of, living. And so I welcome the challenge.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
We'll welcome you, Kyle. Come on down to Texas. I'll jump in here right quick, Paula, if that's okay, and try to make it brief. One of the biggest risks I actually took was when I switched from managing contact center carrier training to taking on our Samsung shop and shop. So our actual Samsung stores and building out a service model within those locations. Yes, I've had retail experience, but to fully start from the ground up and build out this model, it was a daunting task. I didn't have enough resources. It was something brand new to the organization. I was having to work cross-functionally, which was very value add because I learned a lot. But what I realized is that, and Allison has brought this up, Kyle has brought this up, how Samsung evolves and changes. And when you communicate and talk and work cross-functionally, how people are actually willing to help. And it, like I said, it was a risk. It was a big risk to go out on this project and take on, hey, I can do this. So, needless to say, you see, we currently now, I think, have 5 or 6 stores with plans to expand. But I was in the very infancy of that project and said, I'll make it work. And that's the thing. You just can never always have faith in yourself that you can do it. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
That is great. So I cannot believe how fast our time has flown by. I have one final question. If you could answer it 30 seconds or less, any final pieces of advice or encouragement for our listeners on career or even on Samsung?
I'll jump in. So since we're quick, I would say, if you want to work at Samsung, it is a great company. Clearly, there are a lot of people who have tenure here, but you have to be willing to work hard. Don't give up. Be passionate about something. Make sure you find your passion. That's going to be key. And then one thing my mentor said is you have to do it for the passion and not for the money.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief as well. And Kyle, we'll miss you here in the New Jersey, New York area. And I've been kind of harping on this for the last hour. It's make sure you're proactive in your own development. Talk to people. Certainly get some recommendations on who to talk to, but be proactive in your own development because it is a huge company here at Samsung. And we can be siloed in some cases, but certainly do speak to people and make those connections throughout the organization.
Great. I kept thinking to remember my feedback. So this is a great opportunity to plug this one. So one of the things that I wanted to let everybody know is, to also acknowledge the leader within yourself. The best thing that you can do is remember to give and receive feedback. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And so, in terms of helping others grow and contributing value, that's the only way that you can actually do it, because we don't know what we don't know.
Wow, way to end it with the mic drop. Absolutely love it. Yes, and feedback is a gift. So Kyle, Malachi, Allison, thank you for such an incredible and insightful session. Thank you, Samsung, for your continued partnership, and thank you all for joining us tonight. So we encourage you to click on the link that is in the chat, fill out the survey and complete it. Do not delay, because the first 25 people to complete that survey will be entered in a chance to win an Amazon gift card. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you, Paula. Good night.
Night, everybody.